A week after the Supreme Court upheld Arizona's voting restrictions in a 6-3 ruling, President Biden looks set to make voting rights his next big agenda item. A White House advisor telling NBC News that President Biden himself will meet with several civil rights organizations tomorrow at the White House in advance of a speech the president plans to give on voting rights. The White House has teased a major speech from the president on the issue, but the speech will now seemingly wait another week after Biden's meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland, increasing DOJ's enforcement of voting rights protections. The question remains what more President Biden can do, and has he been doing enough to stop the trend of voting restrictions enacted by Republicans all around the country? Joining our conversation, the Reverend Al Sharpton, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and the president of the National Action Network, and one of the leaders who will meet with the president tomorrow. Donna Edwards is still here. Rev, first, what do you want to hear from him? And then I want to hear what advice you'll offer.
Well, we want to hear the commitment of the White House, particularly in light of the Supreme Court decision, to intensify their efforts on the ground and with the Congress. We need to have this White House deal with the fact that the Senate may have to deal with a workaround or dealing with, in my opinion and opinion of others, dealing with this filibuster to be able to deal with legislation that would preserve and undergird the protection of the right to vote. Senate Bill 1 and the John Lewis Voting Act. And that is what the 8 of us leading national civil rights organizations are going to talk to the president about tomorrow. He has said that Vice President Harris would be the one heading this. He needs to unleash her, go in these states, deal with grassroots groups of all races, and really make people understand the gravity of that decision. Because what they have really said in the Supreme Court is that we're going to bring voting back to states' rights, that we're not going to interfere with states making any decision. That signal was sent with that Arizona decision, and we could not sit by. We've been asking for a meeting. Once that decision dropped, Mark Morial of the National Urban League and I reached the White House and said we need to meet now because this has now escalated to where the damage can be something that can be generational.
Yeah, I mean, Rev, that's the damage being generational is what is already in motion from Republicans. And I feel like Mel Gibson in Conspiracy Theory in saying this all the time. But Republicans are so far ahead that now the only option this White House and Democrats in Congress have is to come in and try to minimize the damage, and they won't be able to undo all of it. And I wonder if you'd like to see a more offensive posture, a public relations campaign to build support for filibuster reform, for stuff predicated on the big lie, as a Republican Lieutenant Governor of Georgia said. State legislative pushes to push back around the corners of the most egregious aspects of these laws. Federal legislation that doesn't rest until it passes. I mean, it feels like Republicans have moved with a speed and an urgency. And I said this in the last hour, it's all malevolent, but it has been effective. And Democrats, you've been sounding the alarm for months now, don't seem to be moving as quickly.
I think that in terms of a media campaign, in terms of pressing on the ground, in terms of a media campaign, I think that many of us have said we're going to do that anyway. We want the White House to cooperate with preserving people's right to protect their right to vote. And I think that they should be involved in a campaign. But regardless of what they do, many of us are going to do that anyway. We're talking about the fact that we're back to states' rights. Pre-Edmund Pettus Bridge days, when you can tell Arizona and therefore the rest of these states, well, as long as people can still vote, even if it's a little difficult, it's all right. We can't live under that. So many of us in these civil rights organizations, certainly National Action Network and others, are saying if we got to put up resources to do ads in states, if we've got to do commercials, whatever we need to do, we're going to mobilize. We've already, Martin Luther King III and Drum Major Institute is partnering. We're bringing thousands to Washington right at the end of their summer break on August 28th. We have no choice but to fight. We want to see how aggressive this president is going to be with us. We know he has said the right things, but now the speechifying, as I would say, is over. Oratory must now turn into real action and boots on the ground, because they are far ahead, and they've proved that. They've got the Supreme Court. We've got to be able to take the legislature, and we've got to have the executive branch accelerate the pace in which they're going to fight this, because we are going to see hundreds of thousands of people undermined from voting next year if we don't aggressively take this now. This is no longer theory.
Donna, what would you like to see and hear from this White House? And where are you sort of on the optimism scale that enough can be done to eradicate the damage from these laws?
Well, I mean, if I had hair, it would be on fire, because I think that this president has to move very aggressively, obviously in the public sphere, but really challenging Congress to just get this done. Democrats control the White House, the House, and the Senate, and they have to get this done. It's a political threat and it's a moral threat. And I want to see that kind of energy, the same energy that's put to infrastructure, which I think is great, and to COVID, I want to see that put to voting rights, because there is a lot at stake here, and Democrats just have to be, and the president, just more aggressive about getting this done.